Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, across our beautiful country of Canada, from sea to shining sea and sea up north, our friends south of the border in the United States, Central America, South America, over to Africa, Middle East, Asia, Australia, Antarctica, everywhere. Welcome back to your favorite Angry Canadian on the 11th day of April 2023. And I am saying it like, well, I can't say how it is. I'm saying how I see things developing. And man, here's the first thing. My upload stopped, I think it was back in August last year, and nothing changed. I could sit and tune into any news broadcast, to any political program, even online. Everything was all talk, 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 but nothing changed. Now, that could be because not enough people are aware of what's going on, or maybe people have become plain and simply stupid. But there's so many examples of what I'm talking about. Like here in Canada a couple of weeks ago, we had this piece of shit EU President Ursula Gertrude von der Leyen getting a stand. Oh, just check out the cabinet ministers visible there. I mean, every one of their faces would be awesome for a mugshot. It's just incredible. Those are the politicians in charge of Canada, not because they won an election, but because the NDP has supported them in their disgraceful dismantling of democracy.
Her Excellency's first address to Canada's Parliament.
Excellency?
And on the eve of International Women's Day, an address by the first woman president of the European Commission.
Right.
President von der Leyen, welcome to the Dáil, welcome to Ireland. But to be honest, nobody would thank me, I think, out there in the world if we use this opportunity just to slap each other on the back. So I'm going to raise some issues where I think there is concern and indeed necessary criticism of the European Union. First of all, to take up the last point, we are suffering, that made by Deputy Shorthall, we are suffering an absolutely devastating housing and homelessness crisis in this.
Not just in Ireland, it's happening all over. In February, Cindy and I were down in Vancouver, and I always check out the things on the street in Hastings and Main Street area, persons sleeping, garbage, dilapidated. It's sad. And British Columbia has a huge crisis of drugs, which has created health issues, which has brought about more than 2,000 deaths in a year from overdoses. The government's handling it, though. They put $1 billion for mental health support. $867 million will go to operating funding. What is operating fund? Well, that's the daily expenses, weekly or monthly. It's your lights, it's your heat, everything. Their use of money is absolutely criminal. Absolutely. And they get away with it because, first of all, people don't care about politics. And second of all, because the media covers up for them. The media could show and put pressure on. One of the idiot news persons in Canada used to say, we hold their feet to the fire. God, you couldn't find his feet if you were on your hands and knees, you morons. No. They get away with it. And not only this, this is happening across Canada. It's happening around the United States, happening in Europe. We are the developed, the powerful Western nations, And this is where we have come to. It's a crime. I personally, I say every government, every Western government needs to be dismantled, and we gotta start anew again.
It is shameful what is going on. The number of people in emergency accommodation suffering hardship as a result of this housing crisis. And while so much of the responsibility lies with successive governments failing to address it, a very, very large component of the responsibility lies with the decisions of the EU Commission and the ECB as part of the Troika to ram billions worth of austerity down the throats of the people of this country, which have precisely left us with this legacy of an utterly devastating housing crisis. And I think it is long beyond time that the European Union acknowledged their mistakes in imposing that austerity and the devastating consequences it has had. For you not to simultaneously call for an investigation into the ongoing war crimes and crimes against humanity being committed by the apartheid state of Israel against the Palestinian people, I really have to wonder about the consistency of the ethics of EU foreign policy. I also find it remarkable when we say we must break our dependency on Russian fossil fuels and oil, that at the very same time we increase our imports of Saudi oil. Ironically, the Saudi Arabia this year has doubled its imports of Russian oil and is effectively laundering Russian oil, but we are now importing more from the Saudi dictatorship, one of the most brutal dictatorships in the world, that just like Vladimir Putin, has engaged in a 15-year-long war against the people of Yemen that has claimed the lives of tens of thousands of people. And leading European states continue to arm that regime. Condemn all war crimes, all crimes against humanity, even when they are committed by people that the European Union perceives as allies like Israel or Saudi Arabia or those that arm and support them. President, we have to have consistency in our foreign policy, in our ethics and in our morality if we are going to be taken seriously as defenders of human rights and opponents of war.
I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here is my handle, here is my spout.
It's my honor to welcome the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, to address our Parliament. Almost a year ago, I addressed the European Parliament in Brussels.
It would have been more
and how did that go,
Trudeau,
Justin?
Prime Minister of Canada, to address this House according to Article 144, an article which was specifically designed to debate violations of human rights, democracy and the rule of law, which is clearly the case with Mr. Trudeau. Then again, a prime minister who openly admires the Chinese basic dictatorship, who tramples on fundamental rights by persecuting and criminalizing his own citizens as terrorists just because they dared to stand up to his perverted concept of democracy, should not be allowed to speak in this House at all. Mr. Trudeau, you are a disgrace for any democracy. Please spare us your presence. Thank you.
And it is our profound privilege to host you here at the seat of our government in Ottawa tonight. It is a testament to how deep and strong the bonds between Canada and Europe have become.
Brought a war to Europe on a scale not seen since the Second World War. He thought the world was divided. He thought his invasion would weaken the European Union, NATO, and the ties between the world's democratic friends and allies.
White supremacist, racist Trudeau divides wars into European, well, we're above all that, and the rest of the world. Where was Europe? Where was the Western Alliance when millions of people died in Asia? Cambodia killing fields, in Africa, All over, millions of people have died and the West couldn't give a shit. Okay, I gotta do like big media does, which is leave the big story, Trudeau being a racist, white supremacist individual, and head over to appearances. Because appearances can tell a lot about a person. And I have commented a lot on Trudeau always changing his hairstyle. I mean, I'm going to make a video one day and go back through all the different ones he had, because I do save them. But now he's got eyelashes, and we know he's got to wear makeup. I mean, you know, it's good for him. He cares about his appearance. Now he should perhaps put as much effort into caring about his knowledge and brains and being truthful. Basically, what we are witnessing right now in our lifetime, I've said this, the changes have been momentous, with the Berlin Wall coming down, Soviet Union fragmenting into all the different little countries now. There's been wars ongoing. But one of the biggest things is that China has grown because of its leadership, because of the way it's run. And Africa is growing. Africa is splitting from the West.
So indeed, it is important that all of us accept our ability to hold different opinions. We are, after all, sovereign nations that are regarded as equal in terms of the United Nations Charter. We may differ in terms of economic power and economic ability to influence development in different parts of the world, but what will make the world work is if we respect.
A country that has killed so many of our leaders in Africa and other parts of the world, the killers of Patrice Lumumba, those who toppled Kwame Nkrumah, those who killed Nasser, those who killed Muammar Gaddafi, today are coming to teach us about democracy. If you have no respect for the dignity of others, if you have no respect for the sovereignty of other countries, you cannot claim to be a champion of democracy.
Over 300 guests from over 100 countries and regions gathered together in Beijing to discuss the diverse forms of democracy, the origin, what's the real good governance, and also slammed the hegemonic narrative on democracy.
Respected comrades and friends, in a truly fair, free and peaceful world, democracy takes many forms of expression, not only one. It seems that this month is a month of democracy discourse in the world. At the end of this month, there will be a conference in Lusaka, or a summit in Lusaka, Zambia, my country, led by the United States. They have come to Southern Africa to teach us democracy. A country that was opposed to our liberation, a country that supported colonial regimes, the apartheid regime in South Africa, the white racist minority regime in Zimbabwe, now Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, the Portuguese colonial governments in Mozambique, in Angola, in Guinea-Bissau, and Cape Verde. Today is coming to Africa to teach us about democracy. A country that has toppled so many governments in Africa, that has led so many coups in Africa and other parts of the world. A country that has killed so many of our leaders in Africa and other parts of the world. That's the arrogance, the imperialist arrogance, the racist arrogance that we are subjected to. We cannot have democracy where there is hegemony of the strongest, mightiest imperialist power. We cannot have democracy where a country's resources, a country's decisions are dictated to by another country. A country that is dominated by another country cannot be democratic. A country that lacks sovereignty cannot be democratic. A people that cannot decide for themselves cannot be democratic. A colony, a neo-colony cannot be democratic. That's why today, even at the United Nations, today we can confidently say all roads to progress, all roads to what is better for humanity leads to Beijing. This is a people that have developed themselves, that has developed itself without colonizing any country in the world, without plundering any country in the world, without subjugating any people in the world. This is a country that is developing with maximum respect for others, for their history, for their cultures, and recognizes the diversity that is there in civilization. Today, they cannot accept the fact that China has caught up with them. China is about to surpass them in many areas of human endeavor. The imperialist arrogance is inhibiting them from accepting that reality. The racist arrogance is inhibiting them from accepting that reality. But the world is changing. The changes we are witnessing today, as President Xi said in Moscow recently, or the other day,
как раз сейчас перемены, которые не было в течение 100 лет. Как вместе двигаем эти перемены. Перекиньте, пожалуйста, дорогой друг.
Oh, my friends, I can tell you change is in the air. I can feel it in my bones. China and Russia come together. India is around there. So is Brazil, Saudi Arabia, Iran, most of Africa. There's a new sheriff in town, and if our media and politicians were truthful, more people would know about it and maybe would demand substantive change. Not a change of war, not a change of installing puppet leaders, but getting together and working on the world's issues. It doesn't matter what it is. People can work together, but not as long as you got individuals like George Soros and Bill Gates and many others.
Soros is a old, rich, opinionated person sitting in New York who still thinks that his views should determine how the entire world works. Now, if I could only stop at old, rich, and opinionated, I would put it away. But he is old, rich, opinionated, and dangerous, because what happens is when such people and such views and such organizations, they actually invest resources in shaping narratives. I spoke about globalization. Now, what globalization does is it actually creates a lot of the seamlessness of globalization, which creates all the opportunities, also allows narratives to be shaped, money to come in, foundations to go about their agenda. Now, in this particular case, it is very clear that he has very strong political preferences. He actually thinks that, doesn't matter that this is a country of 1.4 billion people, we are almost there, whose voters decide how the country should run. He actually thinks, well, if, and again, I cite him as an extreme example, okay, but there are other manifestations of this in different countries where people like him think an election is good if the person we want to see wins, if the election throws up a different outcome, then we actually will say it's a flawed democracy. This to my and the beauty is all this is done under the pretense of advocacy of open society, of transparency, etc.
Even though he was born in Hungary, George Soros is not welcome there, along with his open society, which basically tried to undermine the Hungarian government. Now think about that for a second. Not just in relation to Hungary, but when an individual or a group of individuals gather together to decide the fate of an election, the fate of a country, the fate of people, what do you think about that? Is that right? I mean, it's, well, not by my account. Anyway, this is going to bring the end to this video. I got many more featured on this topic, which just seems to go on, because we are right now at a junction. And I'm not even sure if our freedom, our democracy, our lives can be saved from the hands of Bill Gates, George Soros, Amazon, Mark Zuckerberg, and all these people that are shaping or attempting, World Economic Forum, International Monetary Fund, central banks, digital currency, artificial intelligence, and much more that will be shaping or already is shaping a predetermined future. Predetermined World Economic Forum 2030. Oh yeah, the Great Reset. Are you in favor of the Great Reset? Did anyone ask you? Did anyone ask you if you wanted the World Health Organization to have control and power over Canada's health system, so they can decide when you must get a shot, when you don't need one? What is it? This way, that way. What funding? Oh, look at Canada. It's got a bright new idea. Let's get rid of old, useless people. You know, it's not the government that is doing it, but have allowed euthanasia. And there's more than 10,000 people that have opted out of life. They've decided, we don't want to live anymore. Because, you know, I'm old, I'm sick, I'm poor, I'm a burden to the family, I'm this, I'm that. And as such, they decide to go away. And this is, you know, Canada's on the forefront of so many things. Earlier, you know, I was showing Vancouver and the drug problem. Well, as of right now, basically, British Columbia has legalized most, if not all, drugs if they're in a small amount. So it doesn't matter if you're heroin, cocaine, whatever. You can possess it in small amounts. But they don't say, like, where's the people going to be getting it? How are they going to be paying for it? Is this going to be an answer? Has this been tried before in other countries with huge drug issues? None of that matters. We just go on our merry own way. Thank you very much, and if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my new channel. Thank you.